Okay, in today's assignment, we are going to learn how to use the selection tools in Illustrator, or I'm sorry, in Photoshop. So I'm going to show you an example of what we are doing. We are going to create a veggie head. All right, so using vegetables and fruits, we are going to create this weird character, okay, using only fruits and vegetables. All right, so something like this. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so in Google Classroom, I have posted written directions on the steps that you need to take to go through this process. All right, so your first step is to create a new document in Photoshop, and you're going to size it either 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 8.5, depending on the orientation you want your layout to be when you are done. So to get a good idea of how to complete this project, take a look at the examples in Google Classroom that I posted. So these are past student examples. These are like top-notch, like artistic style examples, okay? So if you look at them, they almost look like art pieces. So what they did is they probably took an image from the internet and just laid the fruit and vegetables on top of the face, kind of like this one. You can kind of see how that was done. So they used it as a reference. Okay, you could also do freehand or freestyle. These are some regular student examples, not so much over the top. So they used characters to create their guys, or just came up with their own thing. Okay, so have fun with this. It's meant to be silly. It's meant to have fun. Keep it appropriate. All right. If you want to come up with a theme, you can come up with a theme. You're going to have 4 days to complete this project. This one could probably have been done in a day. So but then they went in and made some more of the characters. Okay, so if you're going to do something simple like this, make sure to create more than one. Okay, make it like a series. Think of it like Pokemon cards or something. I don't know. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing you're going to do is you are going to download these 2 sets of fruits in Classroom. And then you're going to pick something to use for its face. You can also use this melon that's here as well, or a bell pepper, whatever. But you want to use a bigger fruit or vegetable for the head. Okay, so the requirements on this project are you have to have an eye, 2 eyes, a nose, mouth, ears, hair, and anything else you think you can add to it. You can give it like clothing or something like that. I also want you to pick out a background image to use on your veggie head, so you can put them on vacation or create, a character background. If you want, like you saw in that example, students did bikini bottom. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started in Photoshop. First thing we're going to do is create a new document. So I'm going to go to New File, and I'm going to name it, and we're going to call it Veggiehead. You're going to size it. Make sure your document's set to inches. We're going to make it 8.5 by 11 inches. Make sure your resolution is set to 300. Color mode CMYK. And actually, we're going to change this because we're going to be working with photographs today. Okay, so we're going to change it to RGB color, and then we're going to hit create. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is bring up my tools. So I'm going to go to Window, make sure my tools are selected. I don't know why my tools are not showing. Where are they? Tools, there they are. Okay, make sure your option bar up at the top is selected. Okay, if it's not, it looks like that. If it is, it's going to go look like this. Okay, so now my options are up here. All right, then we are going to open up our fruits that we're going to use. So I'm going to go to File. We're going to open this in a new document. We're not going to place them inside. And open. We're going to locate where we downloaded them to. So we're going to go with this one and this one. I suggest downloading all of them. That way you have options in case you start working and you don't like the ones that you've chosen. Okay, so as you can tell up here, this is my document I just created. This is my watermelon, and these are my vegetables and fruits. Okay, so it opened in 2 different tabs. All right, I'm going to go ahead and use my watermelon. So I'm going to grab it. So I have some options here. The first one, your selection tools are here. So the rectangular marquee tool does exactly what it says. It draws out a rectangle or a square. Okay, I don't want to use that because that's not going to work well. You have your elliptical marquee. That makes a selection as well. To deselect, this is the shortcut. Command D on your keyboard will deselect your object. You can also go up here to select. You have your deselect, your reselect, and then your inverse of your selection. So these are your shortcuts. Make a mental note of them. Okay, Command D, Shift Command D, Shift Command I is your inverse. Okay. All right, so your other selection tools are your single row marquee, single column. Obviously, we don't want to use any of those, but I wanted to show you where your selection tools are today. All right, the next one we have our lasso tool. So this is a freeform tool. You actually draw your selection around. This is really rough, right? There are better options, but this is an option. So I don't want to use that one, but I just wanted to show you. So Command D to deselect. You have your polygon lasso tool. So what this does, it makes, when you draw, it makes straight lines. Okay, so this would be good for an object that had nice straight edges. You have your magnetic lasso tool. The magnetic lasso tool acts as a magnet to pixels that it feels need to be selected. So if you use this, you can tell it's kind of snapping to the edge of the watermelon. Over here it's going to get kind of hard, difficult to grab because there's so many highlights. So it's going to think that it needs to go inside. Okay, this is a good option. You could try to use this, but there are better. Okay. We have a new tool here, the object selection tool. So this is new within the last 2 years. So what you do with this one is you click and drag out around the object that you want to select, let it think, and it will grab around the edges. This one is actually probably the one that you're going to use the most. So I'm going to show you in this example. If I grabbed the pineapple, it should snap the selection around the edges of the pineapple. Okay, so this might be the one that you're going to want to use for this assignment. Then we have the quick selection tool. Okay, so what this does, it selects pixels that it feels are similar in color. So I'm going to increase my brush size. Let's see if this will work. The bracket keys on your keyboard are the keys next to the right of the letter P. The left bracket will make your brush smaller, and the right bracket will make it larger. Okay, that's going to be important throughout everything you do in Photoshop. So if I click one time within that object, you can see it's actually on subtract. So if I go up here, let me shut this. If I go up here, this will let me add, select. This will let me add to a selection. So I have a piece selected already right here. If I click here, it will let me add. If I click here, it will subtract. Okay, so I want to add. So I'm going to click here. And I'm just kind of clicking through. I might want to make my brush smaller, but actually it did a pretty good job. All right, so that's another option that you could use for this assignment. And finally, we have the magic wand tool. So I'm going to deselect. So the magic wand tool, again, will try to select pixels that are similar. These objects have a lot of shadow and highlights. So that's what this tool does. It selects certain shadows and highlights within the image. Okay, if your image didn't have any shadow or highlights, it would actually probably do a really great job at selecting. So for example, the background is solid white. If I clicked on that, it's going to grab almost the entire white background. So I've got some shadows down here that it didn't grab. This one is not a great option for this assignment. Okay, so the two that I suggest are using the object selection or the quick selection. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back over to the watermelon. I've made my selection already, and I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to do Command C on the keyboard, go back to my document, and do Command V to paste. Okay. So in Photoshop, to resize an object after I have placed it, I'm going to do Command T to transform, or I can also go up here to free transform. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch this out. You do not need to hold shift in Photoshop when you are resizing your objects. Okay, after I get it the size I want, I hit either this check mark up here or the enter key on the keyboard to confirm my transformation. Then I can go ahead and start adding other pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another object. So let's go make his eyes. Let's do the blueberries. I'm going to drag across. Command C to copy and go over here, and Command V to paste. I need to make sure to go back to my move tool because I was on my selection tool. If I clicked on my selection tool again, it's going to select my watermelon. So make sure to jump to your move tool. Okay, so I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit. And I want to actually show you what's happening because this is going to be important. You want to have your window panel, or go to your window panel. I want to turn my layers on. So I'm going to go to Window, Layers. And layers in Photoshop are very, very important. Okay, this is my background layer. That's the first layer that I created. This is my watermelon layer, and this is my blueberry layer. Okay, every time you create an object or put an object on your artboard, you need to have a new layer. Now, there are going to be some times where you have to actually create the layer, and that's going to be right here to put an object on the board. But because we're copying and pasting, when we copy and paste an object on the board, it automatically creates our layers for us. Now, you can go ahead and rename these layers if you wanted to. So if I double click on the word layer 1 and I name them watermelon, okay, so this is a good habit to get into, but honestly, I've never met a graphic designer that goes in and renames all their layers because we just like to work. Okay, but it is a good habit. So if that's something that you want to do, because you're going to get a lot of layers going on. Now you can hide layers if you click on the eyeball, okay, and turn off and on the visibility. If you want to lock a layer in place, make sure the layer you want to lock is selected, and you're going to go to Lock All Attributes, and that will lock that layer in place, okay? If you want to select a certain object on your artboard, you can click through the layers and it will select that object. Or if you have this auto select button up here checked, if you click on that object, it will select it. Sometimes your objects are really small and it's really hard to select your object. You can zoom in and out just like an Illustrator. So Command plus will zoom in, Command minus will zoom out. All right, so let's go ahead and finish this really quick. So I'm gonna make a copy of this guy. Okay, so just like an Illustrator, if I hold the Option key while I'm clicking inside my object, I can drag over and make a copy. And you saw what happened. When I did that, it made a copy of my layer. Okay, so you're gonna repeat this process until you have your entire watermelon or your veggie head guy going on. Make sure you have a nice background. Make sure you do your best. Make sure, make it look good. All right, this is a fun, silly project to teach you these tools, the selection tools, the layer tools, the transformation tools, okay, in Photoshop. Have fun with it. When you are done, you are going to File, Save As, put it in your flash drive, create a new folder, name it Veggiehead, and then hit Create. We've already named it at the beginning, so we're good. Now you notice my extension here is PSD. This is a Photoshop document, okay? So now we went from AI files to PSD. We're gonna hit Save, okay? And then we are going to export it. So File, Export, and we're gonna go to Export As. This is a little bit different than Illustrator, okay? So what you're gonna do is change your format right here. Select JPEG. Make sure your quality is set to high. You can leave it set to 6. I think that's the default. And then you are going to hit export, put it in your folder, Veggiehead, and then hit save. All right, so now we have a PSD and a JPEG file. Turn both of those files into Google Classroom. Remember, your requirement is a head, 2 eyes, a nose, ears, hair, a mouth, and a background. Okay. If you have a side profile of your vegetable, obviously you would only have one ear and one eye. Okay. If you want me to take a look at it before you turn it in, let me know and I will come take a look at it. But do your best, have fun with this, and go learn something fun with Photoshop.